You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
Happy Sunday morning, everybody. I'm Scott Couch. For the next 30 minutes, we are going to talk politics. 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans commenting on the issues of the day involving local politics as well as state. There are enough shows doing the national stuff, and I only invited people today who were taller than me, as you can see. I positioned them so it just kind of goes this way. Guys, thanks for joining me. And let me introduce our guest, and we'll wade in. Steve Gill. I know you might be the tallest. I'm just looking around. Attorney, conservative television and radio analyst. Jasper Hendricks across the hall, Democratic strategist, chair of the Metro Fair Board. Brian Cordova with us for the first time. Welcome, sir. Executive director of the Tennessee Democratic Party. And Jason Weekly back with us for the second time, who's chair of the Davidson County Republican Party. And you guys have been mighty active lately, and we're going to be talking about that. Guys, let's wade in. Last week, we were not able to be together because in the interest of full disclosure, we taped the show on Friday night, and there was severe weather, and we were not able to record the program. And a couple days prior, Glenn Cassida, former Tennessee House Speaker, and his former Chief of Staff, Cade Cothran, were found guilty on just about all the charges against them in, I guess, a scheme, for lack of a better word, but mail fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy, bribery, on down the line. Now, there are conversations prior to sentencing, and John Rich, the famous country singer who was on Donald Trump's program, help me out, The Apprentice, is that the show? I think he won that. He is calling for a presidential pardon, and my question is it possible this could happen? What are your thoughts as a Republican? We've seen it happen before for Brian Kelsey. I wouldn't have thought that President Trump would have known who Brian Kelsey was. I was wrong.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll make it that high up the chain. We'll see what the appeals process looks like over the next few months. But I will say this. If it does get to Trump's desk, I know that he will have the cognitive ability to know what documents he's signing.
Well, that's of course, that has come up this week. Steve, I don't think Trump, who has a beautiful signature, is using the machine to sign any of his documents.
He signs everything, and I think that I don't think there's a chance there's going to be a pardon in this one. I was also surprised with the Brian Kelsey one. They're going to wait till sentencing, so a pardon is still a long way off.
Sure.
And I think what's going to be interesting is what is the sentence going to be? It wasn't a lot of money, but it's 19 counts of 19 for Glenn, 17 of 19 for Glenn, and 19 of 19 for Cothran. And they took it all the way to the end, all the way through trial. Whether the judge is going to hold that against them for not pleading out, for not making things easier or not, that all remains to be seen in the sentencing.
Now, and I don't have as much experience on the federal level in trials, certainly as some other people may. Would a judge punish you for that? Because I know that Glenn Cassida, for instance, was offered a plea deal by the prosecutors. He just didn't take it.
They can take everything into consideration. And again, the cost of the prosecution, versus the $50,000. Now, Glenn had a great lawyer. Ed Yarborough's an excellent lawyer.
He is.
I always thought it was kind of funny at the end when they were making their closing. He was saying, this may not even be a crime. It's like, I kind of want a stronger defense than that. It is not a crime. But apparently it might not, and that didn't convince the jury.
Well, I let the Democrats go last on this because I thought it only fair you guys should have the parting shot. Brian, I know the Democrats were watching this, and there were a lot of people saying that there's corruption within the GOP, and this is proof.
Sure. I mean, look, I think it's really telling at the end of the day, innocent men don't turn red on their friends. And this is clearly something that is pervasive inside of this party that has had absolute authority in the entire state at this point. And there's a lot to be said about the fact that a country music artist can have a direct line to the President of the United States. That's a troubling thing for mine.
Well, some people would say this is a great country, and that's proof.
Bruce Springsteen, who's attacking Trump. Y'all got Oprah Winfrey, who was doing pay-to-play fundraisers for Kamala. Let's not go there.
So first it's Kamala, and those are all speculations, and there's no truth to any of that. However, we would say we talk about cognitive ability, but the cognitive ability to sit down with a coloring book, that's all he's been doing since day one, is they just put a stack of papers in front of him, and he just play drawing his name on documents that don't mean anything.
He has beautiful penmanship, you have to admit.
And that things have been overturned in the courts. And as far as this case is concerned,
talking about
and as far as this case is concerned, they broke the law. And it's very simple. All you had to do was report it and to be truthful in your reporting. And that's something that they did not do. And so, now whether or not they get the maximum is a whole different story because, some people saying, oh, it was just they only got X amount of dollars. That's all we know. That's all that's been told. There were no witnesses. None of the 22 Republicans that were subpoenaed. I don't think any of them actually. No one testified.
Yeah.
They were able to prove their case.
Robin Smith testified,
without having those right. I'm talking about the 22 current members.
Yes.
That were subpoenaed. None of them
was there
were actually
great
called
surprise
to
on the Hill about that? I mean, everybody thought they were going to.
Everybody thought we were going to find out who actually wore the wire. Like no one knows.
I think we know.
We think we know.
Yeah.
But we were waiting to hear some of that stuff. Some of these things that come out. Into the open. But I think at the end of the day, the law was broken. Now, whether or not, we currently, the person who will be making the decision about a pardon has 34 felonies themselves, And so,
you're not going to be shocked.
Which has now been unconditionally discharged.
Yeah, because he's the president, and that's the only reason why.
The judge realizes that
that's the only reason why. That's the only reason why.
Do you think Trump will pardon in this case?
Who knows? No one knows. It's hard to say. What someone is going to do.
No doubt.
I wouldn't take it off the table.
By the way, while the president's doing his coloring book, he's bringing trillions of dollars in from the Middle East. He's bringing
absolutely not.
Absolutely
not.
Well, then
absolutely not. You spent
more
money. You spent more money.
We'll do this
you spent more money. More
we'll
money.
Be right back. You're watching Nashville in
trillions
Focus.
of dollars coming back to the U.S.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
Welcome back, everybody. New topic. There is video circulating. You may have seen it. I certainly have. I hope you guys have. Circulating State Representative Afton Bain, who's a Democrat of Nashville, a freshman lawmaker, boasting with a friend in the car on this video that they took, that they have been following ICE and they're getting in their way during one of these operations to the point that ICE pulls them over because you're following us, and they realize that. My question is, should she face any kind of disciplinary action within the legislature? Of course, we've got Congressman Ogle saying that our mayor should be brought before a congressional hearing because of things that he has said. Your thoughts on this behavior as a Democrat?
So first of all, I think that it needs to be a clear understanding that Democrats, just like Republicans, want people to follow the law and want people to be here and be law-abiding citizens. I think what the disagreement comes in is the process, in which that some people are viewing that. That some of these that the arrests are happening, unlawfully. When I say unlawfully, it's like people are not given due process, and so people are being snatched up. Can you imagine walking down the street, you Scott, walking down the street, walking your dog, and 5 people show up with masks on, with no identification whatsoever, and they come in, they just snatch you. And put you in, a vehicle. Like no explanation, no nothing. You aren't read your rights. You aren't read. I know it would be very scary. And the only thing that what we're saying is that if these folks are here illegally and they're breaking the law, just say who they are, just so that way people aren't. Saying, they're looking for their loved ones.
Do you think Bain's justified in what she did? I'm not saying she's justified
because I haven't seen the video. I haven't seen the video. I've been on the road. But I really think that she should not be putting herself in harm's way. Because I think when you're doing things, when you're
We've
doing
seen people
something
get
like
arrested
this,
doing similar things.
But you can also get in the middle of something and not knowing what you getting involved in, and it could be some gunfire, it could be anything happening, and you put yourself in harm's way. I don't agree with that, that part. But.
Let's give the others a bite. Brian, have you seen the video?
I have.
It's making the rounds.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Representative Bain is doing exactly what we elected her to do, which is bring light to a population in this city that is being terrorized by the federal government and ICE agents. Look, at the end of the day, I have friends, I have family that are affected by this specifically, and part of this is, as Jasper pointed out, people are afraid to leave their homes, whether or not of their immigration status or anything. And this gets back to the fact that this isn't about enforcing the law, this isn't about public safety, this is about doing a political stunt at one after another, which is exactly what Congressman Ogles did when he spoke about the mayor's name, when he spoke to Representative Bain, and when the Homeland Security Secretary did the same thing. At the end of the day, if they knew who the bad people were and this was about public safety, they would be going after the violent offenders that they claim they're rounding up. And that's not what they're doing here in Nashville.
I know in some cases that's happened, but most of the people that got arrested, we don't even know why. Your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think that what we're looking at here is people who want to try to be the lookout for the bank robbers. I mean, Afton was extremely childish in what she was doing. I disagree completely with everything about it.
You've seen the video as well?
Yes, I watched it. I watched the whole thing. And I think what she's doing is emboldened by Freddie O'Connell. It's emboldened by the governor and the mayor of Newark, New Jersey. It's reckless behavior because at the end of the day, like you said, there's communities that are afraid to go outside. Many of them are afraid to go outside because there's a gangbanger in their neighborhood trafficking humans and selling drugs. Those people need to go home.
Again, if ICE and the Department of Homeland Security knew who those people were, they would use all legal methods. They would use all legal methods.
Yeah, we're going to come get you tomorrow at 10 a.m. and then they'll leave.
But we are allowed to just throw out the entire Constitution to say we're going to just say this entire part of the city
you can get picked
is
up
a
at
problem.
Any time
sure,
and taken home.
But
you don't need to be served a warrant.
But you do have a right to. At the end of the day, you're putting people into a place where they're afraid to call the police even.
They're afraid to call the cops now because of the gang members in their neighborhood.
You're creating some paranoia. If you go down to Nolensville, if you go down those streets on Murfreesboro Pike and some of these places, you have great people that are making this city a better place.
I would say that the Democrats are the ones that are fear-mongering.
We're fear-mongering.
Yes, you are.
Let's let Steve get a bite on this before we run out of time for the segment.
I'd say it's the Democrats that are putting that paranoia out, making them telling people American citizens are being deported. That's a lie. Out of the 200 that were rounded up that started this whole thing, about 120 of them, about 40 or 50 of them already had previous deportation orders. They had had their day in court. They did not comply. And the others were violent offenders. They were ones that were terrorizing the community.
5 people out of 101.
No, 126.
But five of them were violent offenders. 5.
But over 40 of them had previous deportation orders and did not leave. And keep in mind,
and both of these things are true.
And keep in mind that 100% of those that they are detaining and arresting are here illegally. And in addition to that, they're driving illegally. They're driving illegally without insurance. They're working illegally with bogus Social Security numbers, or they're working without Social Security.
So let's go further. Let's go after the people that are hiring them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like you said earlier,
we do have a law in Tennessee that takes those people to task. I don't know that it's been used, but there is a law on the books that
because if they're coming over here for jobs, somebody's got to hire them.
I looked it up.
And somebody else. So who's the one who's emboldened?
35 employees or less, you are exempt from E-Verify. Everybody else has to.
So the larger companies.
But if you're Afton Ben and you're bragging about impeding ICE, that's a confession. And just like you said, if you have broken the law, she ought to be prosecuted.
She should go to jail.
I've got to squeeze in a commercial break, but if you have not seen the video, it is not hard to find. Take a look at it. Make your own judgment. We'll be right back. You're watching Nashville in Focus.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
This next topic is somewhat related to our last one. It won't be a big issue, but Kid Rock, the famous rocker who owns a couple of nightclubs downtown, a week or two back, a little less than 2 weeks ago, one of his businesses shut down early on the weekend because several of the workers scurried because there was a rumor that ICE was coming to Broadway. And the implication being you clearly had people that were concerned about being snapped up. He was asked about it, and finally he said, I'm not involved in the day-to-day operations. Is he off the hook for that, or because you're an owner? Because he's very closely aligned with the Trump administration. Steve, your thoughts quickly.
As Jason pointed out, below a certain level of employees, you don't have to do E-Verify. But even with that, and again, to your point, let's go after the employers, because how are they paying employment security taxes if they don't have a Social Security number? Right. And if the illegal aliens using a Social Security numbers is some grandmother from Seattle, that's another crime. It's identity theft. So let's get them all.
Wanted to touch really quickly. Brian, your thoughts quickly on Kid Rock's situation.
I mean, I actually kind of agree with Steve on this one. At the end of the day,
I must be wrong.
This does.
At the end of the day, business is business, and obviously there's a need for labor in this community.
Tight
this
market.
is a workforce
If
issue.
I use
That's it.
expired food because it saves me money, that's a crime. If I hire illegal aliens, that's a crime.
But we don't have those federal regulations or regulators anymore to make sure that
They're
food
still
isn't
there.
expired. Are
Yeah.
they? Are they?
We have some expired food at my house. We can't believe it's been on the shelf that long. Your thoughts about Kid Rock? Is he off the hook by saying, "Hey, I'm not involved"?
I mean, he's going to be off the hook because they're only using his name.
Sure.
So the restaurant,
And you're right, that's
the
important
businesses
distinction.
are owned by other people, and they just pay him to use his name. So he'll be off the hook for that fact alone. But,
not really running the business.
But if someone's using your name, you should make sure that they're following the law. At
No,
least.
you raise a good point. Your thoughts on that situation?
I agree with everybody at the table. Yeah, it should be
We'll meet down at
enforced.
Kid Rock's.
No, he's a Detroit Cowboy.
We're heading down there. Yeah, that's the new one, isn't it? Yes, I'm not sure if it's open here or not. All right, let's shift
Right, free
in the time
market.
we have and pivot to the mayor's budget. The $3.8 million budget passed on first reading by
$1 billion
council
budget.
this past Tuesday night. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
You said million, it's billion.
Yes, sir. Billion, definitely billion with a B. Nothing like the states. It does include more money for schools, police, and what have you. Interesting thing, Courtney Johnston is among those, along with Quinn Evans Segal, working on an alternate budget. Do you see that alternate budget going anywhere? I guess they're thinking
No.
we can maybe save some money.
No. I mean, because I think the budget that the mayor has presented is probably the best thing that we can do right now, only because of the numbers that are available to them at this present time. I mean, we don't have a federal budget yet, and I don't know if people understand, but, we have to wait till, the federal sends the money to the state, that sends the money to the localities.
Even
and
though
all
it
of that,
started
how that
here, it's
works.
all our money. They're just giving some of it back.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so we have, and as a state that relies 38%, I think, of our budget comes from the federal government.
That's right.
There's going to be, we're going to see not just Nashville, but a lot of localities around the state is going to have some budget issues and budget. So I think what the mayor presented is probably like the best that we can do at this moment.
Oftentimes, and you guys have been around for a while, the mayor's budget generally gets passed, but it's the council that has the responsibility. They can change it if they want.
And what's going to take place kind of within the budget? I just saw a story today that there's talk of moving some of the police officers from some of the tougher crime neighborhoods to downtown to protect tourists, because we got to protect those tourist dollars. Is that a mayor decision? Is that a budget decision? Is that even the right decision? But if you lose those tourist dollars, you don't have as much revenue.
Well, the police chief went before council asking for more, and I think the mayor gave them quite a bit more, but he was asking for additional. I don't want to leave this topic, but I've got to take a commercial break. We're going to be right back. You're watching Nashville in Focus on Fox 17.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
This is our final segment. We're picking up where we left off, talking about the city budget. And Brian, your thoughts. The police chief went before council the other day. Even though they're getting more money, they wanted even more to hire more police officers for the schools. In South Nashville, they're opening up a new precinct. Money's tight, but...
Well, I think Jasper hit the nail on the head there. I mean, there's so much uncertainty going on at the federal level. We don't know what's going on, and we're constantly in this state of flux with the state as well. I think I have to trust the council members and the mayor to do what's right for the city, and ultimately more money for schools, more money for police, more money for fire and essential services. That's what they're supposed to be doing there, and I hope that they find a way to make it happen.
The mayor's budget does that, but there is an effort too by a larger group. Let me make sure I get this right. I
Americans
don't
for
want to.
Prosperity.
Yeah, they had just launched an appeal to the public to sign a petition. Have you signed it?
Yes,
Talk
it's
about
actually
that.
on our website as
Okay.
well, because we partnered with them. We launched a press release about a month ago.
And what's the
now.
end game?
The end game is to try to stop the tax increase. It's 27% tax increase on it. I've looked at it. I'm going to be paying about 30% more on my mortgage or on my property taxes in January. So I realize that we have to pay for things, but I think the argument from our perspective is that we are financially mismanaging the city in many ways. Turk, for example, the Tennessee Immigrant Refugee Rights Coalition, received about $2 million from the American Rescue Plan, which could have gone to pave roads and build sidewalks and bus lanes.
Metro, you're saying, gave them that money?
Yes.
Okay.
Between them and other groups, they've received $2 million.
Actually, no, because just just like your budget is earmarked for certain things, the money that they received came from a certain program within the American Rescue Plan. So that money could not be used for roads. There was money that was received
Just
for roads.
made roads
and
and
there was money for roads, right? There were grants for roads and for transportation and for all of that, you know, and for all those things. But to say that, but to put them in the same bucket is just like how we talk about education funding.
You want to
right?
do it, but you can't.
You want to do it, but you can't because that's not what that money is for. That's not what that particular pot of money was.
Bigger
earmarked
picture,
for.
you think council and the mayor could spend our money better?
A lot better, yes. And not have to increase it by 27, 34% every 4 years. And we want to go to a 2-year cycle. So what's it going to be, 12, 15% every 2 years?
It's a tough
Well,
deal.
People will leave Nashville.
But that's the
They're doing it
reason why
already.
why it's going up so high is because the last time it was done was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean,
in
the
21.
assessment was done, almost 5 years ago.
But look at our
and so,
city's
but if
debt.
you do it, that happened before we all were here.
It
You know,
keeps
happened before
happening
we
under
all-
Democrat administrations, a failure to manage the budget.
Yeah, no, that is not. That
Well, they're all
is
Democratic
not
administrations.
right.
In Nashville.
In Nashville.
Yeah, so, but we also created a
Is it the
Department of
state's
Transportation. We also created a Department of Transportation, a
Got a
Department
new
of
trash
Housing,
division.
a Department of,
services.
so all of these things are also happening. So you have a city that's growing. And all of these things you have to take all this into consideration. So before, 5 years ago, we did not have a Department of Transportation.
And we're
5
building
years
a
ago,
new
we did not
football
have a
stadium
Department
for
of.
billionaires.
We did not. 5
we
years ago,
build
we didn't have a
businesses
Department
for
of Housing.
billionaires.
As a city, we didn't
Both
have
of
a
these
church.
things are
Well,
true.
we
didn't
had
have a
houses.
house. No, but you didn't have a Department of Housing.
Okay.
So you did not, and you also didn't have a waste met. We were contracting
They're in the
out
process
for
of creating
trash
that waste services division. I met the new director a couple weeks back.
So we're building a city right now. So it's like walking and chewing gum at the same time.
But how many more stadiums do we need to build businesses for billionaires?
Hey, you want those
Soccer,
tourists?
I'm going to have
But
to
you
leave
want
it
the
there,
tourists,
folks. We
right?
are totally out of
At what
time.
price?
Thanks for
You want the
watching.
tourists?
See you next week.